FPL Game Week 5 was an unmitigated disaster. What do we do now? Roll the intro.
Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. My name is Jordan, and if you're here for the first time, do us a quick favor, hit that subscribe button, weekly content, and of course, it is absolutely free. We're trying to get to 250 before the end of the year, so please do us a favor and subscribe and share with your friends, of course, as well. So let's get straight into the episode with my previous game week. Now, as I said, this was an absolute disaster show. 37 points, below average, and pretty much a nightmare all over the field. Now, I guess the first thing to say is it does look like a lot of the sort of big players, a lot of the very best players in this game, in my opinion, did have a bad week. So it's important to say that for context. And obviously that's why the average is so low. But either way, it does not make you feel good to see these kind of returns in FPL. So let's just quickly talk through my game week, first of all. So what happened is I had Trent in my team. I think it was on Friday, the injury alert basically came out. So Trent was 100% injured, 100% not going to play. And I had 2 free transfers. So in my position, I made the sort of a little bit of a knee-jerk decision, I'd say, reacting to the Trent injury, knowing that I wanted a Newcastle defender in my team. And also, I was really, really tempted by Son. So not only on the Friday did I go a little bit rogue, but I used both my free transfers. I got rid of Trent because he was injured, although he might be back in the next couple of game weeks. I went with Shaw, who ironically actually this transfer worked out because he was my highest scoring player this game week with the 1-0 win, obviously clean sheet over Brentford. Also what I did, I brought in Son, and in terms of me going rogue, not only did I bring in Son, I decided to captain him over Erling Haaland, which in the end proved neither here nor there. Haaland scored, Son blanked. Not a great decision there. Which kind of proves my point. Maybe you should just stick loyal, stay with Haaland as your captain, and you'll be safe. But outside of that, with obviously Matoma, with Brighton's fixtures getting a little bit tougher, I wanted to take him out. It was a tough decision, to be honest, to get him out. And you obviously saw the result that Brighton got away to Man United. Brighton at the minute are capable of getting a result in pretty much any venue, any stadium in the world against any team. So I don't really want to sell Brighton players, but I do think Son will still be a better choice in the long run. And again, looking around the team, I'll go through in a bit more detail when we look at how my team's looking for the week ahead. But there's no dressing it up. This is a very, very disappointing week. To have a game week rank of 8 million when there's only 9.8 million players is absolutely tragic. And even my subs didn't perform. Like it's a bad game week, and more importantly for me, the world ranking dropping to 600k, 662k. Not ideal, but I'm going to tell you in this episode what we can do about it, how we're going to turn things around. So stay tuned. Looking ahead, so I'll touch a bit more on this in detail in a moment, but we'll use the FDR to work out what I want to do for my next team. But I guess to firstly hammer home the message, if you look at the team of the week here, some of the top scoring players, yes, there's a few gems that people might have had. Obviously, Botman potentially made sense, although there was an injury doubt. Robertson, some people might have had in their team. But you look at, the Hudson Odois, the Hammer, the Douglas Luizes, Reem, Castagna. Really, a top FPL player is going to have these guys in their team? I don't think so. So the way I'd assess this game week is that actually might sound harsh, and apologies if you guys watching did get a big score, but typically the better FPL players, I think, struggle this week. And I'd almost make the case that if you've got a crazy high score this week in FPL, are you a better FPL player, or is it a bit of luck or misjudgment? So that's my take on the situation. Let's get into how my team's looking ahead of the week, and then we'll get on to what we can do about this terrible game week and ultimately how we're going to bounce back. So this is how my team's looking currently with absolutely no subs. No transfers. My subs and switches have been made. In terms of who I'm worried about, I think, the team I support, the team I love, and the team who it's becoming more difficult to love, Chelsea at the minute, I am probably most concerned about both of my Chelsea assets here. You've got Ben Chilwell, who didn't start the previous game week, has been club captain in Reece James's absence, and obviously was on the bench. So that's probably one of my biggest concerns. What I would say is he looked very, very sharp when he did come on. Ultimately, the game was 0-0 against Bournemouth. So didn't have the impact we wanted, but I think potentially did enough to get back in the team. And I've said it a million times, Ben Chilwell for me is one of the best wing backs in world football. So the prospect of him not starting games is quite frankly a joke. I get why Poch did it, but the best Chelsea 11 has Chilwell in it. It's as simple as that. And I don't think it will take Poch long to realise that. Can Chelsea bounce back in the fixtures? That's the question. And for me, that's why I'm doubting how much longer I want, Chilwell, and to be honest, Jackson. Jackson, again, you missed some of. He wasn't good at the weekend, let's put it that way. Got into a couple nice positions, but had a really, really bad shot that went miles off target. And for you guys who have Sterling in your team as well, Sterling again missed a really good chance at the weekend, looked very disappointing. So the red flags for me right now are the Chelsea players. So I'll be looking ahead, and let's just go to the FDR. For Chelsea, Villa, Fulham, Burnley, 3 okay fixtures. But after that, 21st of October hits, Arsenal, Brentford, Spurs, City, and the games beyond game week 12 get worse. So for me, Chelsea players, as much as I hate to say it, I'll be looking to get them out in the next 3 game weeks, because we're not performing against the weaker sides. So there's no evidence to make me think we're going to do better against the top sides. So looking ahead, I think players that I want to get in, looking at Liverpool, nice. Obviously, Spurs away is the tough one at the minute, but West Ham, Brighton, Everton, Forest, Luton, Brentford. It goes against what I did this week because I had to sell Trent, but actually getting a Liverpool attacker in might not be a bad route. Looking at the fixtures ahead, obviously, yes, there is rotation issues, but can I find a way to get a Liverpool attacker into this team? That will be one of my concerns I'm looking at in this game week. And obviously, I've only got one transfer, so I might, sit on my hands for now, not panic sell, or panic buy, however you want to look at it. But right now, key concerns are those 2 Chelsea players, and probably Estupiñán as well. I'd touch on. Obviously, didn't start at the weekend, and Brighton's fixtures are getting tougher. So again, possibly got him on the want out list, if you like. But let's move on. Let's get to the main points of this episode. We've obviously had one of the worst FPL game weeks for a very long time, in my opinion. All your big, FPL previous champions, your FPL YouTubers or influencers, you might say, have had bad weeks. So here is what I think you, and this applies to everyone, should do next. First and foremost, do not panic. Although this video thumbnail might go slightly against it, don't panic into decisions. Just because you had a bad game week, it doesn't mean you need to absolutely doubt yourself and absolutely just, wildcard and panic and bench boost and just basically lose your head. Keep level-headed. And my other next points will touch on this, but don't make any rash decisions this early is what I would try and avoid. And what I mean, I guess, is it's to back up my argument. Has the player case changed? So looking at my team as an example, I got Son in this game week, obviously, based on not only the Sheffield United game, but actually, although Arsenal now have 2 tough fixtures with obviously Spurs coming up, City in a couple of weeks as well. Am I now doubting Son completely? No. So am I going to panic sell Son just because he didn't fire against Sheffield United when I expected him to? No. So the player case has not changed. Shaw, for example, in my team, who came in, I want him for the next 5-6 game weeks. So am I going to sell him? No. Has the case and has the reason you brought in that player changed in this one game week dramatically, unless it has, i.e. for me, an example might be, a Ben Chilwell who didn't start, an Estupiñán who didn't start unexpectedly. So unless the player case has changed, do not panic sell these players or start completely rethinking your team just because of one bad game week. Chances are these players will bounce back in the fixtures if that's why you've got them in. Now, one thing we have to consider is the European fixtures. So the Champions League is obviously kicking off this week. You've then got Europa as well and Europa Conference to bear in mind. So this is where now we do need to think a little bit deeper about the likely rotation risks, because you're going to get teams. A good example might be Newcastle. So we've got the debate. Wilson obviously started this weekend. I was saying a lot of people should have got Isaac in. Isaac was one of the most sold players last week, as I covered in the last week's episode. But Isaac didn't start. So maybe all those people were correct. And it looks like Isaac might be starting in the Champions League, potentially Wilson in the league. So try and think ahead. How are players' minutes going to be influenced by the Champions League, the Europa League, and so on? And finally, the thing in the guiding principle, what to do next, do not rush your transfers. Similar to my above points, the European fixtures are obviously going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the risk you run of panicking and making all your transfers rushed, or your one transfer if you've only got one, is that the players could get injured. Players might get dropped in those games, and then you're suddenly all doubting yourself again as to what to do. Similarly, you've got press conferences and stuff for both fixtures. So don't rush transfers. Make decisions now where you lock in, you use your only transfer, and then something changes or an injury comes up, and actually you're then costing yourself -4. Because all you're going to do is slide down the leaderboards unnecessarily just because you panicked after a bad game week. Look at these fixtures. Look ahead at the fixtures. Has the player case changed? Is that particular asset in your team for a reason? Chances are, yes, it's because they've got 3, 4, 5 good game weeks ahead. So stick to your principles. Do not panic. And make sure you subscribe to the Lost in Possession podcast. But that wraps us up for another FPL episode. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What would you do with my current team? Is there anything screamingly obvious? I've got one transfer, so if you think I should use it, give me a shout in the comments. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.